In this video, we're going to be taking a look on pages PowerPoint 80 and 81, in which we're going to set slide transitions and timings. After watching this video, you should be able to apply and modify a transition and modify slide timings. In a slideshow, you can determine how each slide advances in and out of view and how long each slide appears on the screen. Slide transitions are the special visual and audio effects you apply to a slide that determine how each slide moves on and off the screen during your slideshow. The slide timing refers to the amount of time a slide is visible on the screen. Typically, you set slide timings only if you want the presentation to automatically progress through the slides during a slideshow. Setting the correct slide timing in this case is important because it determines how much time your audience has to view each slide. Each slide can have a different slide transition and different slide timing. Let's now take a look at these steps on page PowerPoint 80. On step 1, it tells us that we want to click on the slide 1 thumbnail. So we want to choose our first thumbnail here in the thumbnails pane, and then we want to go up here to our transitions tab on the ribbon. Now, of course, our transitions are going to be organized into 3 main groups. And to see those groups, let's go down to step 2, where it tells us that we want to click on the More button in the Transitions to this Slide group. So we have our transitions to this slide. We click on the More button here, and we see that our 3 main groups are the subtle, exciting, and dynamic content. And in this case, it tells us that we then want to click on the blinds in the exciting section. Now, unlike in other areas in which you would have to use a screen tip, this one actually uses the words underneath each of the transitions. And in our exciting group, here are the blinds. And we want to click on that. And as we click on that, the new slide transition plays on the slide. And of course, we also see over here that underneath the number 1, right there, that little star, that is a transition icon that appears next to the slide thumbnail in the thumbnails pane. Now, you can customize the slide transition by changing its direction and speed. In step 3, it tells us that we want to click the Effect Options button in the Transitions to this Slide group. So we're going to go up here. So we have the Transitions to this Slide group, and then we have the Effects Option button here. So we're going to click on the Effects Option button, and we have 2 options. We have the vertical and we have horizontal. And in this case, it tells us that we want to click on horizontal. Then next, it tells us that we want to go over here to our timing group, and it tells us that we want to click on the duration up arrow until 2 seconds or 2.00 appears. Then it tells us that we want to click on the preview button in the preview group, which is over here on the far left hand side. So when we click on that, we now see the blind slide transition, and that it's on there for a total of 2 seconds. Now, you can apply this transition with the custom settings to all of the slides in this presentation. Now, of course, a quick tip as well, you can also add a sound that plays with the transition from the sounds list arrow in the timing group. And of course, that is right up here where it says sound. Right now you see no sound. If we wanted to maybe say, for an example, add a coin in there and then preview it, you can have that, or if you want to add some applause. So you can add in some different sounds, but in this case we do want to have no sound. In step 4, it tells us that we want to click on the Apply to All button in the timing group. So we're going to go back here to the timing group, and we're going to click on the Apply to All. Next, it tells us that we're going to then click the Slide Sorter button on the status bar. So we're going to go down here to the Slide Sorter, and of course you'll notice that all of these have the transition icon underneath it, the little star underneath there. Now, all the slides now have the customized blinds transition applied to them as identified by the transition icon located below each slide. You also have the ability to determine how slides progress during a slideshow. Now, you can do this either manually or by mouse click, or automatically by slide timing. In step 5, it tells us that we want to click on the On Mouse Click checkbox under Advanced Slide in the Timing group to clear the check mark. Because right now we have On Mouse Click, which means that it's not going to sit and do anything until we click our mouse or hit our space bar or enter or one of the other keyboard shortcuts to advance to the next slide. So when we deselect that on there, that's what it wants us to do on step 5. Because with this option is selected, you have to click to manually advance slides during a show. Now with this option disabled, you can set the slides to advance automatically after a specified amount of time. Now in step 6, it tells us that we want to click the up after arrow in the timing group until 8 seconds appears. So we're going to go until we see 8.00 appears in the text box, and then we're going to click on the Apply to All. Now the timing between slides is 8 seconds as indicated by the time under each slide in the slide sorter view. Now when you run the slideshow, each slide will remain on the screen for 8 seconds. Now you can override a slide's timing and speed up the slideshow by clicking the left mouse button. Now of course a quick tip as well, you can click the transition icon under any slide and slide sorter to view to see its transition in play. In step 7, it tells us that we want to click the slideshow button on the status bar. So we're going to go down here and click on the slideshow. And then of course we'll notice that the slideshow advances automatically. Now of course a new slide will appear every 8 seconds using the blinds transition. Now of course I'm not clicking on there, so we're just going to go here and take a look as this slideshow continues on. Now of course when we do see the black slide, we're going to press our space bar and then save our changes. Now while this is going through here, there is another way that we can do this as well. We can also rehearse slideshow timings. Now take a look on the bottom of page PowerPoint 81. You can set different slide timings for each slide. Now for example, the title slide can appear for 20 seconds and the second slide can appear for 1 minute. To set timings, you can click the Rehearse Timings button in the Setup group on the Slideshow tab. Slideshow view opens up and the recording toolbar, which you can see on figure D-9 on page PowerPoint 81, will open up. And it contains buttons to pause between slides and to advance to the next slide. After opening the recording toolbar, you can practice giving your presentation by manually advancing each slide in the presentation. When you are finished, PowerPoint displays the total recorded time for the presentation, and you have the option to save the recorded timings. The next time you do a slideshow, you can use the timings you have rehearsed. And of course, as you know, while I was going through that, you notice that the PowerPoint presentation keeps on going on. Now, one thing that this is actually incredibly useful for is that if you're actually going to be using this on a computer in which that you're going to leave it maybe for a presentation in which you're not going to be there. Maybe perhaps you're going to be presenting to a group of people in a auditorium in which there are several presenters, and you can't always be at your station all the time, so maybe you want to constantly have this rolling, maybe as they call it as a kiosk. Now of course once you hit this mode, you can always hit your space bar and go back out to the main slide sorter view. But as I was saying, you may want to have this as a kiosk where you don't always have to be around giving this presentation. You can actually record your information on here and have this to automatically go through. Because when you do go into slideshow up here, this is where you can rehearse timings and you can record your slideshow, and you can actually have narrations. So similar to these videos, you can actually have that on a PowerPoint presentation and have this play. And actually you can have this set up to where it just constantly loops. So once it finishes up with the last slide, it just begins again. So this could be one thing to where it could, you go to place, set it up, and you can let it go until you return. And that is a handy tool to use, especially in the business world. Once we get to this point, go ahead and make sure that you do save your changes. And now you are ready to move on to the next video in which we're going to be animating objects.